Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our workshop from the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub. This is going to be provided by SEL4NJ, and this afternoon's presentation is Cultivating Thriving Communities, Creating Spaces where Everyone Thrives. So before we begin, I just want to share some information with you about our project. The New Jersey Family Engagement Hub recognizes that students thrive when families and communities are engaged in their school, and this will in fact increase the likelihood of student success. So our goal is to promote and engage in activities and policies that build collaborative partnerships among youth, family, school, and community in order to enhance child development and student achievement. So, in order to do so, we will serve as a centralized information hub on family engagement for the state of New Jersey. We inform educators and practitioners and families about education opportunities and provide them technical assistance, resources, and support all around effective family engagement policies, practices, and activities in order to improve student development, academic achievement, and long-term success. So, without further ado, I would like to pass the baton off to Erica and Trish. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kim. All right, we're going to get started with our webinar for this evening. So as Kim mentioned, the title for this webinar is Cultivating Thriving Communities, Creating Spaces Where Everyone Succeeds. And let's get into it. So we would love to know a little bit more about you and who you are. So if you could, in the chat box, introduce yourself by sharing what your role is. So, do you work in a school? Do you work for a community organization? How old are the children you work with? And then we'd also love to know a little bit about how you're feeling right now. So maybe just entering in like, I don't know, maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe you're feeling relaxed, maybe you're feeling happy. So just a bit of an emotions temperature. And we look forward to hearing more about you.
Giving people a few minutes to think about their feelings at the moment. I'm excited to be here.
I feel both excited and I feel very like calm and relaxed, which is an unusual feeling for me at this time of day.
Glad to hear it. And I love the rain, so it's making me calmer too.
All right, we have some, and so forgive me if I pronounce some of these names wrong, and feel free to correct me. Lee, a parent, oh, 4 kids, wow, 13, 10,
Oh,
4. Um, you want to be more of an advocate for your children. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And we have Sabina, who's part of a community organization. It's fantastic. Um, Kim is here, and she is a mom of 3. We just heard all about that. Some kid stuff. Oh, relaxed and balanced. That's wonderful. Kiari is here. Also working with a bit of older children, feeling tired but motivated. So we can hold those 2 feelings at once or multiple feelings at once. And okay, and Sabina working with families and children. Wonderful. So thank you all for contributing to the chat box. If you're not able to, if you're on a phone, that's totally fine. We'll be using the chat frequently throughout, but if we have questions that you can't enter your responses into, just we can consider them as food for thought and just to think about some of the things we're asking. So we're going to continue on here, and I'm going to introduce myself and then pass the baton over to Trish. My name is Erica Brenton. I have been an educator for over 20 years. I started my career as a New York City public school teacher, and then I became a social emotional learning specialist. I'm currently a consultant for the School Culture and Climate Initiative, where Trish and I work together. I live in Montclair, New Jersey, with my husband and 2 children. My children are in middle and elementary school, and I like to go for long walks and read and spend time with my family. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Trish.
Thank you, Erica. So this is me. And yes, I've had the pleasure of working with Erica side by side for many years now. I'm an academic, one hat that I wear. So I'm at St. Elizabeth University in Morristown, and I am the director of our Center for Human and Social Development, where we provide many, many, many different services to support K to 12 schools across New Jersey and New York. We're also working with a school in Chicago to help support the work of creating an environment where all students, staff, and the parent community can thrive. So I've been doing that work specifically for about 15 years. I have 2, I will call them grown children, and one of them, my daughter, is getting married in October. So we're all very, very excited. We really love my future son-in-law. So it's a good time for all of us. And I am an avid runner. So if you don't see me inside a building, I'm probably in my sneakers running around town somewhere. So again, happy to be here with you all, and welcome everyone.
Okay. Thanks, Trish. Okay, we're going to just do a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about this evening, and then some of our objectives for what we're hoping that you get to walk away with tonight. So we're going to really talk about why are we talking about culture and climate, why we find that this is the foundation for really the success of all the organizations and schools we work with. And that way we'll do that is talking about 4 pillars of a positive school culture. And those 4 pillars are going to be a vision and core values. We'll talk about how to foster staff and student voice. We'll talk a little bit about social emotional learning competencies and how to use data to serve all of your purposes. We'll provide you with a 3-step framework for how to incorporate all this. We're going to give you a lot of information tonight, and we'll have a closing. And our hope tonight is that we really provide you with a good understanding of why do culture and climate matter. We're going to get into a little bit about what does culture and climate even mean. So if you're a little bit like not sure what the difference is between the two, we are going to provide you with that information. And then we're going to give you strategies. So for these 4 pillars, so elevating voice, defining your values, how to develop SEL competencies, and how to use data. So we'll provide you with all of those tools. And then we hope that you will walk away with action steps that you could use tomorrow. So we would love if you want to enter into the chat box. One thing that you are hoping to take away from this webinar, because we just want to make sure that you've all provided us with your backgrounds and your roles and the children you work with. So thank you so much. And we'd love to know, like, what are you hoping for that we cover tonight? And we can make sure that we provide you with that. Okay, so, Trish, did you want to?
Sure. So Sabina,
Okay, sorry. I know
thank you for sharing. Sabina would like to gain knowledge. Knowledge is power. Agreed, Sabina. So hopefully we'll be providing you and not overwhelming you with with a lot of information tonight. Thank you for sharing that one thing. Anyone else?
I can keep moving forward, Trish.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Get better perspective. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, that's a good idea, Erica.
Okay. We can kind of monitor as we go along.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we just wanted to set a foundation for you and why we think that this topic matters. So there's a quote, two quotes here that we thought were kind of sum that foundation up. Is a positive school climate is the foundation for learning and student well-being, which is provided by the U.S. Department of Education in 2014. And then from the author of The Energy Bus, a man named John Gordon, is that school culture is not the most important thing, it's the only thing. And so we really believe that, a lot of schools and a lot of people who work with children, we can focus a lot on outcomes and achievement and academic results, but we really find that the culture and climate of an organization or a school is really the foundation upon which everything else rests. So let's get into what does it mean to talk about culture and what does it mean to talk about climate? So the definition of culture are the shared beliefs, values, rituals, and customs. So it's really what we do. And then the definition of climate are our shared experiences of belonging, connectedness, trust, safety, positive relationships, and support. So it's really how we feel. So culture is what we do, and climate is how we feel. And we'd actually love to know from you, in one word, how would you describe your school or your organization's current culture? So, what is valued, or current climate? How does the community feel? And it's okay if you don't enter into the chat box, but maybe just something that you want to think about is, wherever you're working right now, what would you say is the current culture? What would you say is the current climate? So kind of thinking about that as we get into our work here. Maybe we'll give it 30 seconds for the chat.
Oh, a bit stressed, budget cuts, yes. That's unfortunately a common experience right now. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
All right.
We can move
Yep.
on.
All right, Trish, I'm going to hand the Zoom over to you.
Thanks. By this time, there's been a significant amount of research and writing about culture and climate in schools and organizations. So we're at a point right now where the data is really clear, the evidence is really clear, that this statement that culture and climate shapes everything is really true. Some of the data includes the work coming out of the National School Climate Center that is quoted here. Interestingly, see that the impacts of having a positive climate are not just experienced by students, but also experienced by teachers and staff, and the staff in your organization as well. So the people and the students and the kids you serve, but then also those who you work alongside with. So students in a positive climate report feeling more connected, engaged, and emotionally safe. Specifically for teachers, the impacts of a positive climate are really significant in terms of a panacea for what we're seeing in terms of burnout and teacher shortages, because teachers in positive school climates are reporting greater job satisfaction, that they feel that they are working in more collaborative relationship with others and for school leaders compared to teachers in other schools. And of course, lower burnout. What's also interesting to point out is that there is a circular relationship here. If you think about this, if students are feeling more connected and engaged in their school, then they're probably going to be helping create even a more positive climate because of the behavior that's in between those two things. If they feel connected and engaged, then they're more likely to be engaged in positive behaviors and having positive interactions with others, which is only going to elevate the positivity of the climate and the feeling of that school or organization. And similarly for teachers. So this really interesting circular relationship between the impact, but then the contribution that these feelings make to continuing and sustaining a positive climate in the community or in the organization. Excuse me. Thanks, Erica. Next. So here's some more from research on the impacts of positive culture and climate in a school community. Again, the list is long, the list is broad. It includes, again, impacts on both students, but also teachers. Pointing out a couple of specific things I think are interesting. Having a positive culture and climate in the school helps to mitigate socioeconomic impacts. There's no distinction or difference in the impacts of a positive culture and climate across different sectors of schools and districts, from urban to suburban to rural. So that's a really important finding, that this is such a general impact. Having risk prevention initiatives and interventions being offered in a school or organization that has a positive culture and climate is more effective. Research is showing that the impact of those interventions are greater when they're done within this kind of climate and context. Bullying rates go down, absenteeism goes down, suspensions go down. So there's this wonderful collection of positive impacts within kids, but also the teachers themselves and the adults in the school. The next slide. So the question is, how do we get there? We see all the positive impacts when we talk to students and staff and teachers and hear how they feel in the school that they're working in. How did they get to the kind of climate that they're working in? How can we ensure that whatever organization we're a part of, that we can help create and contribute to a positive culture? So as Erica mentioned earlier, we're going to unpack each of these 4 pillars or 4 elements that are really the road to creating a positive culture in the organization. These are key elements. Again, I would just highlight the staff and student SEL competencies here. There is a really important interrelationship between and among the students and the staff and adults' social emotional skills and competencies and culture and climate. The more skilled the people in the community and organization are in terms of social emotional skills, being able to create positive and warm and trusting relationships with each other, the better those skills in both the adults and the students, the more likely the culture and the climate is positive, and vice versa. In an organization or school or community that has a positive culture and climate, that gives both adults and students the opportunity to really develop their own skills in a way that is safe, in a way that really is supporting their engagement in their development of their social emotional skills. And I love this word cloud that provides some of these feelings that people report when they're in a positive climate: supportive, caring, encouraging, respect, inclusion, trust, lighthearted, fun, humor. So what we want to do now is to start kind of unpacking some of these steps along the way for creating a positive culture. So next slide. So the first element that we've are calling out is creating a vision statement. And then also a portrait of a graduate is another technique that or tool that I'll talk about too in a few minutes. But we encourage schools who we work with and communities and organizations to make sure that they co-create with all key stakeholder groups a vision statement for that organization, for that school, for that community. But why? Why is a vision statement so important? The vision statement is really sets the tone for what the goals of the organization are. It creates a common and shared pathway, a common road where all of the members of the organization or the school are working on toward the same goal on the same path. It is a way of really concretely stating what it is that you want your organization to be. So the vision statement functions as a touchstone, something that is, right up on the wall that will remind people that this is the goal. This is the road that you're on together to get to this goal that's expressed in that vision statement. So we've provided some prompts. This is sort of a typical prompt to have people start thinking about a vision for their school in particular, this example is, but it can be broadly applied. So for yourselves too, it'd be nice to really think about these prompt questions. So what would your school look like if it was the best it could be? And you can substitute organization quite easily. So what would your organization look like if it was the best it could be? We also want to underscore the fact that there are different stakeholder groups that might have slightly different visions for what they hope the school to be. In our work with schools, we do a visioning exercise where we actually ask people in teams to actually draw what their school would look like if it was the best school that it could possibly be. But what about administrators? What about teachers? What about students? What about parents? What about board members? So it's really important to honor the visions of all of these key stakeholder groups, but in the end, you want to create a shared vision. So there's a bit of work here of bringing together the key stakeholder groups. And you can think about who your key stakeholder groups would be, who you would want to bring together, and pose these kinds of questions and discuss the vision, the ideas that each has, and then come together with a unified voice of what the shared vision is. So now all of these key stakeholder groups can work toward achieving the same mission. The other tool I mentioned is a portrait of a graduate, which is a way of saying, let's describe who a graduate of our school is, or someone who's completing our community service. What would that student look like? If we have achieved our vision, what would that graduate student have in terms of skills, values, behavior? So the next couple of slides give some examples that we'll look at really quickly. The next one is an example of a mission and vision statement from a school district. Learning today for the possibilities of tomorrow is their mission. And then their vision is that the school district is a community of children, parents, educators, and patrons working collectively toward a common purpose to graduate learners with the skills to be successful contributors in a changing, diverse world. So that vision puts up some posts for what this group working together is hoping to achieve for their students. The next slide is an example of a few portraits of graduates from different districts. And you'll be receiving these, I believe, so you can take a longer look at what some of these are. But just a few examples of taking a vision statement, but then actually putting it into a portrait that shows what students would look, graduates would look like if you've achieved your vision. So over to you, I think, Erica.
Okay. Couldn't find my audio. Okay, thanks, Trish. I had also mentioned that I know there's a parent or two in this group that this really could also be adapted for parenting. Like, what is the vision you have for your family and all the stakeholders in your family? So, thank you.
Yeah, excellent point.
So we're going to move on to the second sort of part of pillar one, which are core values. And I'm just going to provide you with a short definition of what core values are. And then we're going to think about what are the core values of your organization or your school or your family. I actually have a friend who has three core values for her family, and she and her husband tattooed them onto their arm, and I was like, that's so fantastic. So core values are really fundamental beliefs that guide an organization's behavior and decision making, and that could be actually for an individual or an organization. And so, what is really helpful to do is to think about what are your organization's core values, or what are your family's core values. And so, what I have here is a list of some possibilities. This is not an all-inclusive list, but it's really just some examples of, and some ones that I've are sort of like heavy hitters that I've worked with schools on, and I've worked with teachers and administrators and other adults working with children. So what we would love for you to do right now is to look at this list. And again, there may be some words that you're like, this is very important to me and this word is not on here. So I encourage you to think of other words that might incorporate your core values. But to really look at this list and think of what are your organization or schools or families' top 3 core values. And I wouldn't spend too long looking at the list. I just sort of look at the top 3 that kind of stand out to you. And if you wouldn't mind, and if you have the accessibility to put those 3 values into the chat box, we would love to hear from you. So let's take the next minute or two and look at these core values, look at this list of core values and think about what are most meaningful to you. Okay, Lee. And Lee, if I'm pronouncing oh, sorry, Trish.
Oh, that's okay.
I hand the chat box over to you.
Okay. Ed Lee, and again, I apologize too if we're mispronouncing your first name. Integrity, perseverance, and truth. I love that.
I just wanted to share a quick anecdote that, oh, sorry, go ahead. Let's read some of these first and then I'll share.
Yeah. Reflection, integrity, and hope. And it's interesting to think about where these 3 values really live in your life. Often we have sort of a core set that applies to our family, applies to how we are at work, applies to how we are at play.
Yeah.
Teamwork is another. Thank you, Sabina. Service, teamwork, integrity. So we've got some common ones here. Integrity is certainly a popular choice. And teamwork. Thank you.
So these are really the things that like guide all of our decisions and guide our behavior. And so sometimes we could even feel, I've done this work where it's more for like an individual core value, but we can sometimes feel that if our core values are not being met, that we can almost feel like something's off or something's wrong or we're just not feeling great. And it's oftentimes because one of our core values is not being met. So these are wonderful ways to really think about, are we doing everything that we say we're doing in honor of our core values? And we'll get into that in a moment. If you have more that you wanted to enter into the chat box, we would still love to hear from you. I'm going to just move on to the next slide. And we're going to share a little bit about how you can incorporate your core values into your own school, your own organization, your own family. So just like we did now, you would want to start with a team, a small team, and just really think about, and you could use there's actually tons of lists out there if you even like Google core values, list, or we could probably even send a resource list with the presentation that you'll get. But you want to think about what are your top three core values. And after you've really distilled those, and sometimes organizations and teams can identify them like super quick. They're just like these three, you know, stand out to us. There's no question about it. And sometimes it can take a long time, even like several meetings, to really think about, to narrow it down. And so once you've gotten those top three core values, you want to broaden that out and you want to share that with the rest of your staff or the rest of the organization and really get feedback. So, do these resonate with you? Are there any you would add? I mean, sometimes there could be too many cooks in the kitchen, and you kind of want to say, these are our top three core values, and, just share why you came up with those. And, but, of course, hearing staff voice is so important. So even if you're doing this as a family and come up with them as a parent and you can get feedback from your children, like, what do you think of these? Would you add any ones? Would you change any of them? And then we really want to think about after we get staff buy-in, after we get adult buy-in, we really want to think about how to translate this to students. So what does it mean for students to live by these values? What does it look like? So I'm going to just take Carrie's reflection, integrity, and hope. So if we were if we're a school that really these are our top three core values, well, what would it look like to live by, a core value of reflection? What would we do if we had integrity? What does it look like to have integrity throughout the school day? What does it look like to have integrity with our school work, with our relationships with one another? So really getting their feedback too of these are our values and how can you live by them? And then we really want to think about almost like anointing these core values and posting them around the school, or even getting a tattoo on your arm if you're a parent, and really highlighting them. So there's a school here. The image I have is of a school I worked with, and their three top core values were community, growth, and I think it was integrity. And so they posted that all over their school. They painted it on the walls. They gave little baskets to teachers that had these top three core values. They really celebrated them and highlighted them. And then we want to think about, okay, so what are the things that we do every day that we can make sure align to these top three core values? So if, we're doing something that, I forgot the example, but this particular group that came up with this community, there was something where the grade teams weren't working together well enough. And so they said, that's not really aligned with our core values. And so we're going to fix that practice, and we're going to have these grade teams work together to make sure that we're honoring our value of community. So you want to think about all the things that you're doing within the organization and then say, okay, does this align with the values that we hold so close to us? So I hope that was, if there's any like questions along the way, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. We know we're giving you a lot of information here, but please feel free to like either enter them into the chat box or wait until the end and we can do a Q&A. But I am going to continue on to our second pillar here, which is, I think, one of the ones we find to be super critical, which is elevating staff, child, and parent voice. So we're actually going to watch a little video about a school who really honors student voice. But we want you to think about, while you're watching the video or just kind of before, so within your organization, how and where do staff have the opportunity to share their voice, and how the same for students and the same for parents? And then if you're a parent attending this webinar, maybe you can think about, how do I honor, my children's voice? How do I honor my own voice? So we're going to take a look at what that would look like in practice. I'm going to just escape real quick from this presentation. So bear with me. And I'm just going to launch this video. And Trish, maybe just give me the thumbs up if you can hear.
Sure, will do.
When social emotional learning is successfully integrated school-wide, student perspectives and experiences shape daily school life. Staff engage students as leaders, problem solvers, and decision makers.
When we think about youth voice, there are two things we think about. First is the youth themselves. Do they have the competence, the skills, the confidence to use their voice? And secondly, are the adults in that space creating opportunities for the youth to be heard? What it looks like in a classroom can be anything from the youth leading the instructional time. Even kids as young as kindergarten can lead that circle time and facilitate discussion among their peers. It can also look like students serving on committees to help problem solve in the school. So it's important that they are real decision-making collaborators, not simply just planning prom or a safety patrol.
Principal Mark Ingoglia of Facing History New Tech High School in Cleveland tackles youth voice and engagement by first creating a safe environment. He passionately believes when there's underlying trust, students feel more comfortable using their voice to advocate for change.
In 10th grade year, we had this class where it was like a conjoined class, and the students didn't like what was going on with the conjoined class. So we actually we had a protest. Like the 10th graders, we all walked out of class, and then they fixed it. Like 11th grade year, we had separate classes for the class we protested for. So yeah, they listened to what we said and it mattered for them.
If they feel safe to say it, they will say it. If they don't trust us, they're not going to say it. But again, I think that's something that we've started here at Facing History New Tech since day one, where kids were going to have a voice in what they do. The artwork around the building, it's theirs. I almost never say no. The kids are like, can I do this? Sure. If it's going to make our place a better space, absolutely.
To help create a climate of trust, Mr. E, as he's called, has implemented peer mentoring programs, which empower students to take charge of their learning and growth.
With my peers, I have this group called Link Crew, which I'm in. It's where select juniors and seniors are in a class, and we mentor the freshmen. They come to us about work, life, how the teachers are treating them, and we just help them through it.
Because of the strong relationships Mr. E has forged, the students felt comfortable using their voice to bring change to their school.
When they started here, the food in the cafeteria, because we share with an elementary school, they were not getting the normal high school portions. So I reached out to the people I needed to reach out to, and I kind of got a company line. And the kid said nothing changed. And I said, well, I think it's time for you guys to reach out.
The students took their concerns all the way to the district superintendent.
They reached out to Eric Gordon. He spent a day at lunch with them. And within a few weeks, they had different things. So they were empowered to see that piece.
Just as the students have a voice in school culture, they are also part of the classroom decision-making process about learning activities.
We are student-led. That lesson was not created by me. The scholars told me what to do, and they told me when to stop reading and when to turn to the next page, and they presented it.
We want to continue with the important content of the academics. Obviously, that is key to what a school system needs to do, but it's the approach. Are we making our young people feel welcome in the classroom? Do they feel part of a group? Are they able to work on problem-based learning? Is there collaboration and small group discussion? Student voice is extremely important in this process. So we want the very important content, but at the same time, the how we get it across is extremely important. Are we including all of our young people in our decision making.
Elmira principal Jim Green is data-driven. He sends out surveys to all the students so he and his staff know exactly where some adjustments might need to be made.
The students' voices must be heard because they're going to let us know what supports they need. They're going to let us know saying, hey, we really enjoy this. We don't enjoy that. We have a survey. It's called the Conditions for Learning Survey. It lets us know where the children are, how they're feeling. Do they feel safe? Do they feel challenged at school? How are their relationships at school with adults, with their peers? And from the surveys, we're able to see where we're going. Like, are we moving in the right direction or a negative direction?
High school students are supported at the district level by a program that brings together students from different schools.
We have our student advisory committee, and we bring anywhere from 430 to 450 high school students together 4 times a year for this activity. They talk about particular building problems. They also have programming that comes in and shares with them about teaching empathy and understanding emotion. They're also charged with taking back to their building and sharing at staff meeting the things that they've actually worked on.
Students are much more inclined to take up a challenge if they care about what they're learning. And so having a project that they themselves are really invested in gives the fuel and the motivation for them to want to figure out how to make this work. And if they try one way and they have, one result, they're much more likely to take up a challenge to try a different way if they actually care about the outcome that they're working towards. It's almost impossible to get them to persevere on something they don't care about.
Experiences shape daily.
All right. I love that video. And
So do I.
I love it. I wish I don't know. I wish we were all in environments that honored student voice in that way. So we would encourage you to think about how you are, fostering voice in your community, in your family, in your school. If you'd like to enter those thoughts into the chat box, we're gonna move on to the next pillar of fostering a positive climate and culture. But if you would like to enter your thoughts into the chat box, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear some of the ideas that you have. I'm gonna pass it on back to Trish, and I will monitor the chat box, Trish, in case anything comes up along the way.
Okay, great. I think the next slide just shows examples, suggestions.
Thank you.
That's okay for elevating
And so,
parent voice. And these are just some suggestions. And I'm sure you can think of lots of other ways of getting more voice from the people who are your key stakeholders in your community groups. So yes, I think we can move on to pillar 3. And when I listen to that video, I really hear the interconnections of climate, culture, student confidence, student social emotional skills, all embedded together in what was happening in those school environments that were highlighted. So we just want to mention again that social emotional learning, the skills in this domain are really important for creating a positive culture and climate and creating the confidence in students in order to share their voice. Again, there's lots of research showing the benefits of intentionally addressing children's social emotional skills. And this in particular is one that I love. That was a longitudinal study that showed all of these great outcomes years after students had completed social emotional learning programs or activities. So the next slide might remind you of some things that Erica did talk about in one of the earlier workshops that was focused on social emotional skills. And this is a model that's quite popular. CASTLE is the organization that was also cited in that video. But thinking about in your own organization or in your own school, how and where are you helping students to develop these skills and sub-skills? The core skills are in the middle. It's hard to read: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills are those core skills. But the outer rings are intended to communicate that it's really important for youth to have lots of opportunities to practice these skills, that helping students to develop these happens better if the goals of these learning outcomes are actually integrated throughout their experience, etc. So in order to have that confidence in being able to share their voice, students do need the social emotional skills and competencies to do that, but they also have to feel like they're in an environment that is safe, and that they trust those in that environment to be able to share their voice. So again, there's this interconnectedness between social emotional skills, culture, and climate, and again, for both students and the adults. So I think that we should move on to pillar 4, which is using data to guide the journey. So why is data important, and how does data help on this journey of creating a positive culture and climate in your organization? It seems kind of obvious, but collecting data can actually confirm and validate your observations and your assumptions about the organization that you're in or not. So it's an important check-in. Data is very concrete and clear often, but it's also compelling to other people. So collecting data can really help you advocate for interventions or changes or focuses that you want to move your organization in, to maybe address some of the things that are coming out in the data that are indicating there could be some improvement in the culture and the climate. And the data provides direction for that improvement. So there's a whole bunch of different sources of data. On the next slide, we've collected some of those. And if you are in a school setting, you probably do know that you have a lot of this data collected on a regular basis. And in particular, attendance, harassment, intimidation, and bullying reports, suspensions, discipline referrals, all of those are directly correlated with culture and climate and social emotional skills. But another thing to do is this first program inventory. What do you have going on now that connects in any way in your mind to creating a positive culture and climate, or helping the key people in your organization or youth to develop social emotional competencies? What are you already doing? We have a metaphor or analogy of the jumbled schoolhouse that we often use. Because once you do this program inventory and really take a look at a list of things that you're doing and activities that you're engaging in, you can see some areas of overlap. You can also see some gaps. And it sparks some thoughts about how effective these programs and activities are, some ways of thinking about making change, who is being impacted by the programs and activities in your school, what students or youth groups are not. So that's an interesting step for an organization to take the time to do. And then qualitative data, getting open-ended question responses from your key informers is directly in their own voice. So again, very compelling to have qualitative data. The school nurse's office has a treasure trove of data that correlates with how students are feeling in that school. So attendance records are kept there, but also visits to the school nurse. There may be some frequent flyers who are making fairly frequent visits to the school nurse. What is underlying that? Is there some anxiety there? Is there some issues that are bubbling up in sort of these somatic ways that can be related to those students' social emotional skills, relationships, etc. So these are just some examples of data to guide the journey. Climate surveys are really a perfect tool. We always recommend disaggregating school climate survey responses from key groups. So if you're doing students, for example, looking at differences across grade level, looking at differences across self-reported ethnicity, other ways of comparing subgroups, because that's where you can really see where the disengaged students may be and can really target and focus your approach to improvement. And understanding strengths as well as the opportunities for improvement. So having a balanced analysis of the data and looking for the drivers of what that data is telling you. And so the next slide. So how do you go about using data? Like the example of creating core values that Erica shared, it's great to gather a small team of people together who are interested in looking at data, identify the sources you're going to use, bring that data together, and then together as a team, analyze that data, particularly again, comparing subgroups, finding those opportunities for improvement, but identifying strengths and trying to figure out what are the drivers of strength. So if students are saying they feel really connected to the school, you want to know why. What is the driver of that feeling? And then of course, tracking the journey that you're on. So we'd like you to just take away and think about what sources of data you have in your organization. And what you might want to look at more closely now, thinking about the data in this context of what does the culture and climate feel like for everyone in that organization. So next slide, and I think this is the last to you.
Yes. Okay. All right. So we've given you a lot of information, and now we want to give you a little bit of a framework or some steps that you can follow to kind of bring it all together. So as we talked about in Pillar 1, you could really start with a vision statement. And that could take, a month, and that could take a year. It really depends on, who you're involving into your vision statement, how you're broadening it out to the community. It doesn't need to be done in a super short amount of time. It's a very important part of this puzzle. And so really thinking about starting off with the vision statement, and then also really you could also do this simultaneously or after, is to really think about the core values. And you can do this with all of the stakeholders in your community. So staff, student, community partnerships. We also didn't include parents here, but also very important to include parents into this piece, and families. So as a step one, really thinking about what is your vision, what are your core values, and how could you bring that out into the larger organization or school community, or even your family. And then the second step would really to think about, like, where are we in this journey? So we've created our vision, we've established our core values, and now where are we in this whole process? And that would really be where you would consider gathering your voice. So asking staff, asking students, asking parents, what do you think of this vision? How do you think we're living or not living by our core values? And then using data to also have that same kind of consideration. So if our vision is, one of the vision statements that Trish had read before, what kind of data is lending itself to establishing that vision, and what data can we use to think about how we might be or not contributing to that vision or these core values? So really thinking about both the voice piece and the data piece to think about assessing where you are. And then finally, what practices are contributing or not contributing to this vision and these core values, these North Stars? So, what are the policies like discipline, hiring, training, professional development? What rituals, systems are there in place, recognition systems that that are lending itself to the vision that you want for your community, organization, or school. So for an example, does your discipline policy align with your core values? If one of your core values is integrity and one of the discipline measures you take is not aligned to integrity, really having those conversations and thinking about how you can align all of these policies and procedures to the place that you want to work in, the place that you want to create. So again, this is not like a quick fix. This is not, we are an organization actually that Trish and I work in, and we do this over a 3-year period with schools, and sometimes even longer. So really thinking about taking your time with all of these different steps and not rushing it. And really, it's a journey. It's not a place where you are going to get to immediately, but it's the journey that you can take to get there. And so we hope that this framework is really helpful. All of the information that we've given you is really helpful. I wonder, okay, let's do this first, and then we can do a Q&A, or should we do the Q&A first, Trish?
Do we have a minute left?
1 minute left. Okay. So how about this? Why don't we say, if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat box, and we're happy to spend a few minutes answering them. And if you don't have any questions, we'd love to know from you, what is one idea that you are going to take back to your setting? So whether you work in a school, you work in an organization, or you're really trying to get this information for your family, what's one idea that we've provided to you that you're going to take back with you? And you can enter those ideas and questions into the chat box.
Oh, good. Thank you, Lee. I'm learning that CPAG is not parent-led. This is a timely webinar for me in collaborating with the school in our district. Fabulous. So glad that the timing is helpful to you, and that this will help you to approach this a little differently. I'd love to know what CPAG stands for. If you want to put what that
I'm like trying to guess it in my mind. I wonder.
That would be the Special Education Parent Advisory Group.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. And it seems like I was wondering if that P was parent, and to not have it be parent-led feels important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lee. Yeah, and I think a lot of this too is creating two-way communication paths, right? To share, sort of share equitably in who has voice between those you are serving or helping or supporting and your organization staff. So really honoring the voice of those that you are hoping to support and serve in a very balanced, power balanced way. I think is important. Sometimes we from within a school tell out rather than listen for feedback and ideas from outside to in.
Okay, well, I think probably we can say we hope that this webinar was helpful to everyone, and we appreciate all of your contributions along the way. We will be sending both the recording and a copy of this PowerPoint to all of those registered, so you can use any of this information that we've given you right away. And yes, we just want to thank you again for being here. Thank you so much. I know some folks are on their phones, so totally fine if you weren't able to contribute into the chat. We're just glad you're here. And we hope to see you at another webinar. Please stay tuned. We will have another one coming up in September. So thank you again, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Drive safe if you're still driving.
Yes, I'm going to stop.